Good morning. This is media number 1 to the videotaped deposition of Joseph SCHREURS in the matter of Park Plaza Towers Owners Association versus Patrick McErlane et al. Being heard before the Superior Court of California in and for County of San Mateo. Case number CIV 515-621. This deposition is being held at Coddington, Hicks and Danforth, 555 Twin Dolphin Drive, Suite 300, Redwood City, California, 94065. On May 12th, 2014, and the time is approximately 10:12 a.m. My name is George Fox, and I am the videographer. And the court reporter is Catherine Ryan. Counsel, will you please introduce yourselves and affiliations, and the witness will be sworn in.
Sharon Pratt, representing Nancy McErlane and Nancy McErlane's Trust.
Richard Bow, representing Nancy McErlane and Patrick McErlane.
Grant Baker, representing Plaintiff Park Plaza Towers Association.
And
Howie, representing Patrick McErlane.
Could you repeat that, sir, on the line?
Robert Howie, Howie. I'll get you a card later.
Thank you. Sir, would you raise your right hand? You do solemnly state under penalty of perjury that the evidence you are about to give in the matter now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. SCHREURS, could you spell your name, or state your name and spell it for the record, please?
Joseph SCHREURS. SCHREURS.
Okay, thank you. Have you ever had your deposition taken before?
Once.
Okay, what were the circumstances for that?
I was a witness.
In what type of case?
A divorce situation.
Your own?
No.
Okay.
Clients.
Okay. Are you an attorney?
No.
What is your occupation?
I'm a consultant.
What type of consulting do you do?
Aviation.
So can you explain that for me?
I set up procedures, guidelines, maintenance procedures, get engines, lease exchanges, write contracts for those exchanges.
For airplanes?
For airplanes.
Got it.
Aviation.
Okay. And are you currently self-employed?
Yes.
Have you been self-employed for a long time?
Since 1980.
In that same field?
No. I was a consultant. I worked for Provident Credit Union. It used to be CTA Credit Union. Left there and got into finance and started teaching other credit unions how to go ahead and use checking accounts, visas, rather than just the mom and pop loans and savings. So we diversified.
Okay. And so when did you start this aviation consulting?
I started that in 1985.
Okay. So I got a little ahead of myself. I was going to first ask you about whether you understood the rules of a deposition. So you have done this once before. How long ago was that?
Gosh, maybe 25 years ago.
Long time. Okay. So I'll briefly go over them again. Is there a reason why you're wearing sunglasses today?
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot I even
It's okay.
had them on.
It's up to you.
No,
Okay.
I didn't even realize I had them on.
Okay. And you understand that the court reporter is taking down everything that you and I say today?
Yes.
And that you've taken an oath and that your testimony today has the same force and effect as if we were in court?
Yes.
Okay. And is there anything about today that would make it a bad day to take your deposition?
No.
Are you under the influence of any medications that would affect your testimony today?
No.
Okay. What is your date of birth?
January 17th, 1949.
Do you take any medications on a regular basis?
Yes.
Can you tell me what those are?
There's 9 of them. And so it's allopurinol.
What is that for?
Heart condition.
Okay.
kind of nervous on this. I completely blanked on some of the medication.
It's all right if you don't remember the names.
Yeah.
If you could tell me generally what they're for.
3 heart medications, 1 cholesterol, Coumadin for lowering, thinning your blood, also calcium for bone density, since I tend to break my bones easy. Also another Zidia, which is another cholesterol-lowering medication.
Okay. What is your heart condition?
I've had 3 stents put in. I've had triple bypass. I've had 4 angioplasties, and under the constant care of the doctor right now.
Okay. When was the last surgery that you had?
The last surgery I had was in 2005.
2005. And is the angioplasty before that or after?
The angioplasty was prior.
Okay. And the stents after?
Yes.
Okay. So when was the last time you had a stent put in?
2004.
Okay. Okay, so you started telling me your work background. Can you tell me your education?
Went to graduate high school at St. Joseph Seminary.
Is that on the peninsula here?
No, that's in Santa Cruz.
In Santa Cruz?
Yes.
Okay.
It's called the Oblates of St. Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
And college at Cal State Hayward, which is now College of the East Bay Hayward.
Thought it was still Cal State Hayward.
No,
Okay.
they changed a few things off there. Never did graduate there. I had 3 years there.
Okay.
And then the military picked me up.
Okay. What branch of the military were you in?
I was a U.S. Navy corpsman.
In what year?
1970 through 74.
What is your current address?
110 Park Road, Burlingame, number 308.
And have you lived in any other homeowner associations or common interest developments?
Never.
Okay. You served on the board at Park Plaza, correct?
Correct.
And for what years did you serve on the board?
2000 to 2000, to the end of 2006.
So when did you first move into Park Plaza Towers?
December 1999.
You started on the board shortly thereafter?
Yes.
Did you volunteer to fill a spot, or were you elected in an election?
No, they asked me to come on the board.
Okay, so you were appointed by the board?
Yes.
Who was on the board at that time?
There was, Norma Behringer-Salz. There was Jerry Thompson. I can't remember some of their names.
Long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago.
And by the way,
Most are all gone.
one of the admonitions I didn't tell you is that I'm just entitled to your best recollection today. You don't need to guess at things. So if you know something, you can tell me. If you have a general idea or an estimation, you can tell me that. But I don't want you to guess at anything. Understood?
Okay.
Okay. So you've held what offices while on the board at Park Plaza?
I was just a board member for about a year, and then I was elected as president.
Elected as president in 2001?
In 2001, yes.
Okay. And did you remain in the office of president until the end of, what did you say, end of 2006?
Yes.
Okay. Who's on the present board right now?
There's Donna Horowitz, Sue Gill, Steve, who I can't think of his last name at the moment. Let me see who was on the board. Are these the minutes?
We don't want you to guess.
Okay, I can't think of their names off the top of my head.
Belated objection, Lax Foundation.
Are you aware of any other board members who were, wasn't there recently a new board elected?
Yes.
Okay, are you aware of any others besides Horowitz, Gill, and Steve?
Well, there's Steve Starr, and then there's Steve DeGraff.
Okay. Steve DeGraff related to Andrea DeGraff?
Yes.
Husband or son?
That's husband.
Okay. And Steve Starr related to Nyla Starr?
Yes.
Husband or son?
Son.
Okay. Do you know when Donna Horowitz first started on the board?
I know she started right after she moved in. She was pretty much picked up.
Did she ever overlap with you?
No.
Okay. After your service on the board, did you serve in any other committees or anything like that for Park Plaza?
Yes, I helped write the manual with Jerry Thompson for maintenance. And also reviewed their reserve studies for them.
Who is Jerry Thompson?
Jerry Thompson used to be a resident, and I believe he lived in 307.
And so the two of you just decided to put together a maintenance guide?
The former manager, Jim Quill, had a heart attack, and then he wound up going in for a bypass, and he was 69 years old. And he's been there for 25 years, so we said, you know, we better have a game plan because he knows things about the building that nobody knows. So we went with Jim and wrote up this manual, which covered from the plumbing to the boiler to the igniters to the phones to the electrical to garbage to you name it, sprinklers, pool, everything in the building.
Does the association still have that?
Yes.
Did you produce that today?
No.
Okay. Has that been produced, do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
I can give one for you. I mean, I had it, but I didn't think it was pertinent to today.
Okay. And who prepared the reserve studies that you reviewed?
This company that was hired by the board.
Okay. And why were you reviewing the reserve studies?
I'm good with finances, and so I would sit and go through it, and I would determine the life knowing the building. It's almost like a ship. You know that something looks good, but you can see some sweating on the pipes in that, so those have to be replaced. So you say, well, that's not going to last another 7 years just because it says it's going to last 7 years. And so we looked at it, called a plumber out, and they said, no, that's going to go anytime, and it did. So
even if the reserve study said 7, then you might question that?
we might question it by looking at it and redo it, and then get a replacement cost and evaluation on that.
Okay. And then you would have a revised reserve study that was more accurate?
Right.
Okay. Okay. Let me mark first in order this document that's Bates stamped 1106. That will be 41.
Yeah.
Mr. Schurz, if you take a look, or first show your attorney the document that we've marked Exhibit 41.
Do you have any additional copies, Counselor?
No, that's what I have, sorry.
It's all right. Did you want to enter as an exhibit the deposition notice? I understand that it was from Rick's office at some point.
I don't right now.
Okay.
Just tell me when you're ready. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are you familiar with that document?
I've seen it, yes.
Okay. And is that the board meeting minutes from Thursday, December 14th, 2006 for Park Plaza Towers?
Yes.
Okay. And that was a board meeting where you were present, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Were you the person who hired Patrick McErlane?
He was never hired.
Okay. And so when he was doing work at Park Plaza, as what would you call him?
Temporary.
A temporary employee?
He was temporary to change the garbage cans and to vacuum the floors, and that's all we asked of him.
To take out garbage and vacuum floors?
Right.
Did you ever call him an employee?
No.
Did you pay him as an employee?
No, we paid him hourly.
Well, employees are often paid hourly.
Well,
So do you know whether you paid him as an employee or as an independent contractor?
I don't know how we paid him.
Okay. And did you ever call him the resident manager?
Never.
Were you the person who decided to hire him temporarily to do those things?
I checked with the board, and we agreed to do it.
Okay. And you were the president at the time, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Do you know when he started doing that?
He started, I believe it was in October.
Of 2006?
Yes.
Okay. Now, at some point in January of 2007, that employment or temporary employment, whatever you would like to call it, of Patrick McErlane was terminated, correct?
He terminated it.
Okay, so I know there's some controversy about whether he quit or whether he was fired, so I'm just going to say that it was terminated, right?
True.
Okay. And did you have a discussion with the board prior to that termination?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have an executive session?
No.
Okay. So how did you discuss this with the board?
I contacted several board members and told them that Patrick had applied for a job full-time and wanted the manager's position. And they said, you know, great. I told Patrick he needed to go ahead and get us a background check. He would have to also do a credit check and a drug test. And once...
Wait, slow down just a second there. So what's the time frame when you told him that he needed to get a background check?
It was probably a week prior to having a meeting with the board so that he can go ahead and be offered the position. He would have to meet the board, but first he would have to go to Dave Behling. And
Let's stop.
Okay.
She asked you
So-
about the time frame.
Oh.
So are we talking December 2006?
We're talking the end of December 2006.
Okay. And what about the drug check? When did you tell him about that?
Same time.
Okay. And, well, two things. First of all, in terms of the communication with the board, were you doing that on the telephone?
No, I'd see a board member and I'd say Patrick wanted to apply for a job, and they said fine, he needs to go ahead and fill out an application and we'll get it over to Mr. Behling.
So this was talking to each board member in person,
Yes,
but in separate
separate
times? Got it. Another admonition that I forgot to tell you is since the court reporter's taking down everything that we say, it's very important that we not talk over one another.
Oh.
So I know oftentimes you will anticipate what my question is before it ends, but it's important that you wait, then answer the question, and I'll try to do the same because
Okay.
I have a tendency to do the same thing, okay?
okay.
Okay. And your communication with Patrick about that, did that take place in person?
Yes.
And what was Patrick's reaction?
Great.
Okay. So he agreed to get those things for you?
Yes.
Okay. Did he in fact give you a background check?
Yes.
Okay. Did he give you that background check before his meeting with Behling?
Yes.
Okay.
However.
Wait a second. No. Stop.
Yep. Okay.
Did you have discussions with Behling prior to the meeting at which Patrick's employment was terminated?
No.
No? No discussions whatsoever?
Before Patrick went to the meeting,
Right.
I never spoke with Dave Behling.
Okay. So do you know who gave David Behling instructions on what to do?
That would be Bob Foster.
Okay. And what was Fossner's office at the time?
He was vice president.
Okay. Did you have any discussions with David Behling at all prior to that time?
No.
Okay. And Patrick started in that role that you said consisted of taking out garbage and vacuuming floors before David Behling started, right?
No, David Behling was there as the property manager for the association.
Okay, my understanding was that David Behling didn't start until later. That's not your recollection?
He may have started a week or so later, but not much later. He was there while Patrick was there.
Well, in the minutes of December 2006, if you take a look at those, that's Exhibit 41.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see under 4C and D, those are the reports
Right.
that you're giving?
We changed from Franciscan to Behling.
Okay, so that would have taken place in December,
Right.
correct? Okay, December 2006?
Correct.
And you said Patrick started in October of 2006?
October, so you're right.
Okay. And under Section 4D in those minutes, that's also a report from you on the on-site building management, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you say Patrick McElwain has received good reviews from BOA. What does BOA mean?
The board of directors, they misspelled that.
Okay. And residents will be moving in, and residents and will be moving into Unit 106 in January, correct?
Correct.
And so the plan as of that time was for Patrick to live in Unit 106, is that right?
Correct. As the manager, if he's hired.
All right. And the Unit 106 is the unit at Park Plaza that is used for the on-site manager.
Yes.
Now, there's some confusion in the documents about the actual date that Patrick went in and met with Mr. Behling and when this employment arrangement was terminated. Do you know, are you clear in your mind as to what that date was?
Not offhand, I can't.
Okay. Okay. So I want to mark next the document that's bait stamped 1001 through 1006. So this will be Exhibit 42. And it has a few pages, so I'm probably going to go from back to front if you want to take a look at that and familiarize yourself with it.
This is actually more than one set of documents incorporated into this exhibit. Are you aware of that? There's an email.
1001 through 1006. It's a string of emails.
Well, there's 1 of 2 here, and then it looks like there's 4 of 4 attached before the 2 of 2. So we're actually looking at multiple sets of communications in one stapled document.
Okay. I believe the sequence follows.
Okay. So let's just read it from back to front. Start here. Okay. This may take a little while.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that was just the first email. You wanted to go through the entire string of correspondence, right?
Well, I can, wait for him to read each one of them if it's easier that way.
I don't know.
So you read the last
Read the last ones from
ones?
Dave
Okay.
Behling to the board.
Okay. Before I get to that, whose idea was it to get the drug testing and credit check and background check on Patrick?
That was Bob Foster's.
Okay. Was it, did you believe that on December 14th, 2006, the date of the meeting in Exhibit 41, that Patrick thought that this job was already his?
No,
You didn't think so?
no.
Okay. But you did report at the meeting that he was moving into Unit 106 in January, correct?
If he got the job, which whoever wrote the minutes didn't complete the whole thing. Once he's hired, then he would move into 106.
Okay, so you believe that those minutes were not correct as of December 4th, 2006?
Yes.
Okay. And then, well, let's get to the actual date of Patrick's meeting with David Behling, in which, and the date that he had his employment arrangement terminated. This email, if you look at page 1005, I think that's the bait stamp page, the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an email from Dave Behling to you?
It's to myself, to Jean Gish, Mary Janey, and Squeaky Clean, and Bob Foster.
Okay, was Jean Gish on the board?
Yes,
Mary Janey on the board?
yes,
And you were on the board?
yes.
And, well, it looks like Jean Gish is there twice, right?
Right,
And then Bob Foster was also on the board?
yes,
And Behling Associates was the manager?
yes.
Okay. And Squeaky Clean, where are they on there?
No, that's Speakeasy, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
It says, yeah,
Okay. So
Squeaky.
so it wasn't to Squeaky Clean?
No, she was listed twice. It should have been Claire Coleman.
Okay. Now, if you look at the second paragraph, Behling says, "Today I met with Pat." And so he's saying that on January 9th, 2007. Would that refresh your memory as to the date that this termination occurred?
Yes,
Okay. So you think it was January 9th, 2007?
yes.
I'd like to make a standing objection as far as this quote-unquote termination, because I believe Joe earlier testified in the objection is that it may misstate his prior testimony that he was quote-unquote terminated when I believe that he testified earlier that Patrick had essentially left. So,
Well, I believe it all happened on the same day, right?
No,
So we'll get to that. So the date that Patrick saw Behling and the date that he saw you, that was the same day, right?
on this one, yes, but not prior when he first asked if he can apply for the job.
I know.
Okay.
So, I mean, in terms of, if there's another term you'd like me to use for the termination, are you just talking about timing?
well, it sounds like he never was formally hired as a full-time employee. So when you say terminated, that sounds like he was a full-time employee and he was terminated from a full-time position as opposed.
And I'm not trying to establish what type of employment it was, whether it was full-time, part-time, conditional. I just want to use a term that would be a catch-all. So
Okay.
termination in that sense. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So what did Behling tell you happened at this meeting that he had with Patrick on January 9th, 2007?
Well, from the contents of his email, if you want me to refer to it, but I did speak to him on the phone.
Okay, and
And-
did you speak to him on the phone prior to 5:57 p.m.?
No, after 5:57 p.m. I was on the phone with Mrs. McCarrollin prior to that.
Okay, we'll get to that. Okay, so when you first heard about this meeting that Patrick had with Mr. Behling, was that from Nancy McErlane?
Excuse me, could you repeat that?
So did Nancy McErlane call you first to tell you what had just happened between?
No, she
Okay.
had no idea.
Okay, so who did you hear from first about this meeting between Patrick and?
From Patrick.
Okay. So you were not on the phone with Nancy McErlane when Patrick appeared at your door?
Yes, I was.
Okay. All right.
I wasn't on the phone with Dave Behling at
Okay.
all.
Let her ask
that's
the
what I
That's what she was trying to go.
establish. Okay. No. Okay. So you got a call from Nancy McErlane?
Yes.
Okay. And what did she ask you?
She talked to me about Patrick, why we were going to hire him. I said he's been doing a good job. We didn't have any problems with him. Then she said, well, you know, how difficult he's been over the years. He's had some problems. She raised him by herself. There was no father there to support him. She did it all by herself, and went on with that conversation.
And wasn't she telling you what had just gone on at David Behling's office?
She didn't know.
You don't think she knew at that
No,
time?
because he left to go down there, and then the phone rang, and it was Nancy. She couldn't have talked to him while I was talking to her. I talked to her for probably 45 minutes. After 45 minutes, there was a knock on the door, and I heard Patrick say, "Open up." I was still on the phone with Mrs. McErlane, and I opened up the door, and there's Patrick standing there.
Okay, and so she was on the phone listening to your conversation with Patrick, correct?
Well, the phone's in the kitchen, probably about 10 yards away from the door. I don't think I was inside my unit. She may have heard a little bit, but she didn't hang up.
So you put the phone down to get the door?
Right.
Okay. Okay. And you were then having this discussion with Patrick at your front door?
It really wasn't a discussion.
Okay. Confrontation?
Confrontation.
Okay. Who else was present?
No one.
Okay. So your wife wasn't home?
No.
All right. And did you tell Patrick at that time to give you his keys and his credit card?
No, he handed me the keys without asking, and handed me the credit card. And he says, "I'm fucking out of here."
Okay. So he didn't...
And then I said, "Well, what's up?" He says, "You have my check within 24 hours. I said, "Let me check the keys." I looked at the keys. I was missing the master key.
And so you told him to give you the
And I said, "I
key.
need the master key." He says, "You'll get that when I get my check."
Okay. And so you just said that he said, "I'm fucking out of here." Do you remember somewhere else saying that he said, "I'm out of here"?
Nope. He may have said, "I'm out of here," but "I'm fucking out of here" came out.
Okay. And so on that day, did Patrick scare you?
I was apprehensive. I was glad to get back inside the house. I didn't know if he was hanging around and what he was doing.
So did you know at that time what had happened at David Behling's office?
No.
Okay. You had no idea why Patrick had reacted this way?
No. All I knew is he went there, David Behling was going to offer him a job, and that's where the day started.
Okay. In this email from Dave Behling to you, he describes to you and the rest of the board what happened at this meeting with Patrick McErlane, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, Behling says that Patrick got agitated when he was told he wasn't hired yet, right?
Correct.
And he said he got agitated when he told him he was going to be drug tested every 6 months, right?
Correct.
And did that come as a surprise to you?
No.
Why not?
Well, because he was going to be an employee of Dave Behling, not of Park Plaza Towers Association.
Now, that email from Behling on pages 105 and 106, or 1005 and 1006, I'm sorry, of Exhibit 42, Behling doesn't say that Patrick on that day did anything worse than saying, "I don't like you," and slamming the door,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yes?
That's what he's putting in here, yes.
Okay, he doesn't mention using profanity or scaring people, does he?
Objection document speaks for itself. Lacks foundation.
Have you read it?
Yes.
And it was directed to you, right?
It was directed to the board,
Including you, right?
yes.
Okay. And so at that time, he was telling you that Patrick left and slammed the door and said, I don't like you. And he says we will be looking at a replacement for Pat under similar terms, or utilize outside vendors and get someone in the unit at a reduced rent to help around the building as a manager. Right?
Mm-hmm.
In fact, he said he already knew of possibly 2 worthy candidates from another association, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, is that a yes?
Yes.
That was another thing that it's important to say yes or no
Yes.
rather than mm-hms and mm-ms. And be careful about gesturing or shaking your head to answer a question. Now, his last sentence, it says, it's too bad that this has come about, but I believe, and I know Joe agrees, it to be a blessing in disguise, right?
Right.
So did you have a discussion with David Behling before this email?
No.
Okay. Why does he say in the middle of page...
You know, the only thing I could tell you is Patrick had an appointment at 5 o'clock at Dave Behling's office. And I knew he was going to go in there. Dave Behling also knew prior to that Patrick gave us page 2 of 3, which showed that he had a felony. And Dave Behling knew that.
Okay, so start over. You're saying that you knew that before the meeting that Patrick had with him?
Yes.
Okay. And so you were in possession of this background check?
That Patrick gave me, yes.
Okay. When did Patrick give that to you?
About 3 days prior to the meeting with Dave Behling.
Okay.
And the board was aware of it because I had a meeting with the board as well about it.
Okay.
Patrick said it was a DUI, and we felt that he had every opportunity to go ahead and still go through the interview process because he said he hadn't had a drink in over 13 years.
Okay. Okay, so that didn't bother you, the fact that he had a DUI?
No.
All right. So in the middle of page 1006, Dave Behling is saying, in talking with Joe, Pat called him last night and Joe felt threatened. Today I understand Pat left my office and went to Joe's to report on our meeting and to tell Joe off, and Joe asked for his keys and credit card. Joe can give you further details regarding Pat's criminal check. Bottom line is Pat is no longer an employee. So apparently Dave Behling thought that Patrick was an employee, right?
Objection calls for speculation. Lacks foundation.
And in that paragraph, it makes it sound like you had had a discussion with David Behling before 5:57 p.m. on January 9th, 2007. Does that refresh your recollection?
I don't believe I had a meeting or a phone call with Dave Behling prior to that. It was a few days prior.
Okay. Why, do you know why he's saying Joe can give you further details regarding Pat's criminal check?
Because after...
Objection may misstate prior testimony. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. No, it just... That's the only thing Patrick gave me was the record to show that he had a felony. And he said it was a DUI. And all it had was numbers. And I had no idea what the numbers meant.
Okay. And so did that have anything to do with the termination of his employment?
No.
Okay. So have you read the email at the top of page 1005?
Not yet.
Okay. Just let me know when you're ready.
Okay.
Okay. Is this an email that you received on January 9th, 2007 at 6:52 p.m.?
Received it probably on the 10th because this goes to my office.
Okay. So you mean you didn't read it until the next day?
Well, this was, I believe, a Friday.
I think it was a Tuesday.
Tuesday,
Yeah.
so I would have got it probably on Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay. So at any rate, you received it. And did you read it when you got it?
Yes.
Okay. And in it, Mr. Fossner seems surprised that that this episode happened with Patrick, right?
I was surprised that this episode happened with Patrick.
Okay, but I'm just asking you about...
And so was Bob Fossner, so was Jean Gish, so was Mary Janey.
Okay.
We were all taken back.
And why is Bob Fossner curious about what information you have regarding Patrick's criminal check and why you felt threatened? Do you know?
Objection calls for speculation. He can't get into the mind of Mr. Fossner.
I just asked him if he knew.
I don't.
Okay. So did you have information about Patrick's criminal check that the rest of the board didn't have?
No.
Okay.
I presented what Patrick gave me, unless one of the other board members knew what the codes were and what else, what they actually meant.
Okay. So David Behling says to everyone, Joe can give you further details regarding Pat's criminal check. And Bob Fossner says, I'm curious about this criminal check and why and what information Joe has, but you're saying that everybody had this information.
Yes.
And do you know why Fossner is curious about why you felt threatened?
When Patrick came to my door and was very aggressive, that's when I felt threatened.
Okay. And he says, I thought Joe reported Patrick's criminal check as clean, but it was undoubtedly a mistake to have Patrick get his own report instead of having an independent outside agency get one. Do you know if you ever reported Patrick's criminal check as clean?
Never.
Did you tell the board that he had a DUI?
Yes.
Okay. And did you ever get a different criminal check on Patrick?
No.
Okay.
That was going to be Dave Behling who was going to do that.
Okay. Do you know if Dave Behling ever did that?
No, he never even completed the process.
Okay. And then Fossner is also asking you and the rest of the board whether Patrick quit or was he fired, whether you could expect an unemployment claim, and if fired, was he fired for good cause, and is there documentation, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you turn to page 1003, at the bottom there? Do you see there an email from Fossner to Jean Gish, I guess it is, and then BRBETC, whoever that is, and you and Mary Janney and Dave Behling?
You know, I don't know. I'd be speculating.
I'm just asking if you see that.
Yeah, I see the BRB, and I
Don't know who that is?
don't know who that is.
Okay, but at any rate, that email was directed to you, among others, correct?
Yes,
And it's dated January 10th, 2007 at 5:20 p.m., so this would have been the date after Patrick's meeting with Behling, right?
yes.
And you say, sounds like a nice gesture, thanks for letting me know. Oh, I'm sorry, that's Bob Fossner saying, sounds like a nice gesture, thanks for letting me know. In response to an email below that says, Jerry came to my door about 15 minutes ago and said he wished to apologize for his attitude when I saw him earlier in the afternoon. Do you have any idea what that is about?
Yes, that is Jerry referring to me.
And who's Jerry?
Jerry Thompson.
Was he on the board at that time?
No,
Oh, okay.
no.
But he had been in the past, right?
He was on the board in the past, yes.
Okay.
What had happened was, while I was talking to Mrs. McCarolyn, she then told me that Patrick had a felony and he had a criminal record and spent time in jail, which I had no idea about. So I related that to Jerry Thompson, is that what we thought was a DUI wasn't a DUI, and in fact was a felony, and had served time in jail. Where Jerry Thompson got pissed at me and literally almost pushed me, and I left, and I got out of his way, went back to my unit. Jerry was down the hall from us. And then Jerry later came and apologized because he thought that I was making this up and that it wasn't true. And so he realized that I was telling him the truth, and that's why he apologized.
So was he angry that you had fired Patrick, or that,
Objection may misstate prior testimony.
I'm sorry, was he angry that about Patrick's termination?
Yes.
Okay.
He had a meeting with Patrick prior to going. First, Patrick had a meeting with me the night before on how to actually go in and apply for a job, and I didn't know how Dave Behling worked. He then went over, when I told him what the board was going to offer him, he says, well, I need more than that. And then he went and had a meeting with Jerry Thompson afterwards, and then he sat down with Jerry. And so Jerry liked him, and I liked him, and we thought we were, working on the same page, trying to get a manager together. Since Jerry and I were putting together this manual, we wanted to make sure that we could get somebody that was able to do the job. And Patrick, I believe, was 45 or 42 at the time, so we figured he's going to be around a long time. So that's what we were working on. And so Jerry was totally taken out of surprise when I told him this.
Okay.
And he was upset.
And then he was apologizing for that confrontation that he had with you.
Yes.
Got it. So you just gave me kind of a long answer there. So what you were saying was that prior to January 9th, you had a meeting with Patrick, and so had
The day
Jerry.
before, yes.
Why did Jerry? Oh, because of the maintenance manual.
Right.
So even though Jerry wasn't on the board, he was involved because of the maintenance manual?
Right.
Okay. Okay. And you made it sound as if in this conversation you were having with Nancy McErlane that you thought Nancy McErlane didn't want her son to have the job?
She did want him to have the job.
She did?
Yes.
Okay. And she told you that his DUI was a felony?
Yes.
And you understood prior to that time that a DUI can be a felony, right?
Objection. Calls for a legal
You
conclusion.
did not.
No, I figured DUI is a DUI. And then afterwards, I mean, like months afterwards, I went and talked to a police officer regarding how do you get a felony DUI. He said, you either get 3 or more, or you get into an accident and you then have some vehicular manslaughter charge or anything else, and then that will turn into a felony.
Okay, so you didn't find that out until months later?
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks.
If you look at the top of page 1003, that appears to be an email from you because it says Joe at the bottom, right?
Right.
Do you know where the top of that email is?
No.
Okay. Did you produce documents for this lawsuit to the association a while back?
Yes.
You did, okay.
Well, when I left the board, I gave them all the documents that I had.
Okay. Including your emails?
Yes.
Okay. You don't know why the top of this one is missing?
No.
Okay. And it seems like this is partial. Well, maybe you can tell me. And did you get a chance to read the top of that page?
We had gone ahead and painted the Unit 106, and he was upset with the paint job that the painter did.
Patrick was.
Yes.
Okay, and so you're...
And Gene Gish hired this guy who does her apartment buildings, and so we said fine. He was going to charge us $700 to paint a whole apartment. So I said, let's do it. So apparently Patrick didn't like the way that the work turned out. Patrick said, you know, the guy was bad, and he kicked the guy out. And the guy wanted to fix it, and Patrick wouldn't let him back in.
And so in this email, do you know who you were emailing?
I was emailing Gene Gish.
Okay. And you're telling Gene Gish that Patrick swore during his meeting with Dave?
Yes.
Dave Behling didn't put that in his email recounting the events. So how did you know that Patrick swore during his meeting with Dave?
This was prior to the meeting with Dave. Patrick was still working. This was when
No,
Dave
I'm talking
Behling,
about this email.
This email where it says Patrick swore during a meeting with Dave was Dave showed up at the condo, asked Patrick to hand out some flyers.
Oh.
And Patrick refused to hand out the flyers, and Dave says, no, this is your job too, as if you want to be part of the management team. And he told Dave to stick his own fucking notices in the doors.
So you think that what you're referring to in that email is the meeting when Dave came over to give flyers to Patrick?
Yes.
Okay. And then you're telling Gene Gish that you got a taste of Patrick's temperament when Patrick complained about the painting in 106?
Yes.
And that happened on January 8th, the day before the termination?
Right. And he was hot.
But you're writing this email later on after the termination,
Yes.
correct? Okay. And you say this term Patrick-castrophe. Did you make that up?
Yes.
So did you think that this was amusing?
Yes. Because here we were thinking we're going to hire somebody, and all of a sudden we're seeing in a day go from this guy who was always helpful down to, whoa, wait a second, you know, and you can't be yelling at vendors, you can't be yelling at the property management, and, you know, we may be having a problem here.
So now you say, I propose we simply state that Patrick failed the first part of our background check, and we absolutely cannot hire him. So first of all, you thought that the background check with the DUI didn't bother you at first, right?
Right.
But now you're saying that we should say that he failed the background check, right?
Well, he did fail the background check. He refused to do one.
Okay, and, well, he gave you one, right? He gave you a
He
background
gave me page 3 of 4.
Did he ever refuse a background check?
No.
Okay.
He refused a drug test and a credit check.
Okay, okay. And then you say in all caps, we absolutely cannot hire him based on the information that has come to light.
Yes.
So what are you talking about, the information that has come to light?
That he had a felony.
Okay. And you say Patrick's action of turning in his keys and credit card to me stating I'm out of here constitutes a resignation. So is there a reason at this time that you're wanting to call this a resignation rather than firing?
Well, because I was told that he was never hired. He walked out of an interview process.
And so you're saying the fact that he said, I'm out of here, constitutes a resignation, right?
Yes.
Okay. And this is after Fossner was worried about whether you might have to pay unemployment or get a wrongful
Right.
discharge claim.
He's an employment attorney.
Oh, Bob Foster's an
Yeah.
employment attorney? Okay, if you turn to page 1001 at the top. Well, go ahead and read this whole email if you would, or if you have to familiarize yourself with it. Just tell me when you're ready. And it goes on to the next page a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, is this an email written by you?
Yes.
Do you know where the top of this one is?
No.
Okay. Did you write this email to the board?
I wrote it to, I believe I wrote it to Jerry Thompson, Bob Foster, Claire Coleman, and Mary Janney.
How can you tell?
I remember we were talking about different areas.
So even though you're talking about what should happen at the next board meeting, you
Right.
weren't writing it to the whole board?
No, this is more of a draft that I sent out, and then I sent it over to Jerry. I left the bottom, working on this since blank. There are certain things. Bob Foster's email, this was more of a note that I had started out that I don't believe I sent to anybody, but it was going to be addressed to the board.
Okay, now at the top of this page, well, can you tell by the content what date this was sent?
No. Well, it was obviously sent after Patrick.
Right, and it's after the day the locksmith came?
Right.
So do you know what day, did the locksmith come the day after Patrick's termination?
He came the very next day.
Okay, so this would have been maybe 2 days after?
Yes.
Okay. And you say at the top of the page, I thought the reprimand wasn't thorough enough. If we're going to tell each other how to act and speak, we should probably include what to wear and how to walk. What are you talking about in that sentence?
Well, Jerry came across very aggressive towards what he felt that I had downed Patrick and that I was not being honest with him. And I said, we can't tell people how to act or how to speak or what to wear or how to dress. We just have to assume that they're giving us their best.
And so what reprimand are you talking about?
Well, the reprimand that Jerry had given me regarding not hiring Patrick.
Okay, so you were telling Jerry that he should have given you an even more thorough reprimand?
Right.
And
that I failed to communicate the whole thing to him, but he was not on the board.
Okay.
And so, he was just there to help me do the reserve study and the manual. And that was it. And in the meantime, while all this is going on, Jim Quill had already left. So now we were working on it by ourselves, pretty much in the blind.
Why were you saying if we're going to tell each other how to act and speak, we should probably include what to wear and how to walk? You're saying that we shouldn't tell each other how to act and speak?
Objection may misstate prior testimony.
Can you explain that?
Asked and answered. Do you understand the nature of the question, Joe?
Not,
Can you please rephrase or repeat the question?
Yeah,
Sure.
you
Why? Do you want to answer it as asked?
know,
Okay. Why were you saying if we're going to tell each other how to act and speak, we should probably include what to wear and how to walk?
Asked and answered.
I wish I had the very top of this to see what was on the next page, because there may be more to this than just this sentence, because normally I don't just go in the middle of something without having something on top, and I don't see it, and I don't recall what that was relating to.
I wish we had it too. It looks like there was an email right below that on page 1002 where Bob Fostner is saying, sounds like a nice gesture about Jerry apologizing to Gene Gish for how Jerry had confronted you, right?
Right.
Okay. In any event, let's go to the bullet points at the top of 1001. What keys, you say that you contacted San Bruno locksmith yesterday, and you've just told me that was the day after the meeting between Patrick and Behling, right?
Right.
And the master locks are in the process of being changed. So what keys or locks did you have changed at Park Plaza?
The three on the third floor, we have a board room which has all the keys to every single unit in the building. There's also a lock spot where In another room, we have the security keys for the cameras and all that. Also, the locks for the electrical room was changed, which controls all your power. We had the keys to the boiler changed to the manager's unit changed, which all opened up under the master. Then we had the keys for the pool room changed, the swimming pool room, which contains all the equipment, and there was 11 locks. The keys to the elevator shaft was changed.
What about access to the roof?
That was never locked.
Okay.
They lock it now, but it was never locked then.
Okay. And did you change the locks because you were worried about Patrick having access to those places?
I was only worried about him having access to all the keys to the unit.
Okay, but you changed all those locks that you just told me?
Right, because when you do one, you have to do all of them.
Okay. And had Patrick already given you back the keys at that time?
No.
So what keys did he give you?
While the locksmith was, he gave me the keys to the pool room, which was not where the equipment was kept, but for underneath the storage. He gave me the keys to the front door, gave me the keys to the unit 106, gave me, there's about 5 or 6 keys. There were some separate locks to the side door. Those keys he gave back. Gave me the key back to the chandelier that raises and lowers it so you can change the light bulbs. He gave me keys to the mail room. Gave the keys to the phone that's outside the building so you can change the codes on those. He gave me back every key except the one key that stood out, which was the master key.
And didn't he give you back that key the next day?
With his mother, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
But that was
it
the
was
same
too late.
time. Okay, let me just finish. So, but that was the same time that you were already having the locks changed?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what about this bullet point that says Jerry is handling the front door number? What did that mean?
The front door has sequences of codes, and again, it's in the manual. It'll walk through and exactly how to change it. But if a new person moves in, then they have their phone established. You need a landline, so that then is connected to the front door, so you can hit 9 and buzz people in. So you have to have that key to change the numbers, and then there's a series of codes you go through.
So was Jerry handling the front door phone number because Patrick had been set up to live in 106?
No.
What did that have to do with Patrick, if anything?
We had another person move in, so we had to change that, but Jerry's going to handle that.
Okay.
For that, because it was Patrick, tried it on one and he couldn't change it on somebody, and so Jerry went down and did it.
Okay. So that had to do with somebody else moving in?
Yes, that's
Okay.
a whole different person.
Got it. Okay. Now, in the middle of page 1001, where it starts with next board meeting, do you see that?
Yes.
And you're proposing to amend last month's minutes to add, instead of just saying Patrick has received good reviews and residents will be moving, and residents, from board and residents, and will be moving into Unit 106 in January, you wanted to add, after the board conducts a background check and formalizes an agreement. And you say unless one of you has an alternative suggestion or language, right?
Correct.
Okay. And below that, you say, regarding Patrick McElwain, just so we're on the same page with pertinent facts, and then you list some bullet points there. The first one, you say his failure to mention his and then you put in all caps, extensive criminal records or criminal record and convictions before now is an omission of a material fact equals fraud. So what are you referring to when you say extensive criminal record and convictions?
Well, his mother told me that he just didn't get a DUI, but that he had a severe felony that he went to jail for, which was not told to me by Patrick.
Did she say how long ago it was?
She said it was back in like 1995 or so.
Okay. Did your conversation with her change any of the understanding you previously had about the fact that Patrick hadn't drunk alcohol since that time?
Objection confusing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so you told me earlier on that the DUI wasn't important to you or wouldn't prevent you from hiring him because it was just a DUI and it was and that he hadn't had a drinking problem since 1995, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you said that your impression of his criminal background changed when you talked to Nancy, right? Okay, so I'm asking you, in that conversation with Nancy, did she say anything to conflict with your prior understanding that he hadn't had a drinking problem since 1995?
Objection may misstate prior testimony.
I agree wholeheartedly that a DUI doesn't turn into a felony unless you've had something else happen. And a DUI, if somebody says, I've got a drinking problem, and on one occasion he says, oh, you never want to see me drunk. So that told me that this guy doesn't drink anymore. But the felony I had a problem with because there was 44 units, and one of the things that they definitely wanted in that building was somebody that did not have a felony.
How did you know that?
Because I had talked to several people, and he says, well, as long as we don't have Charles Manson in the building, it's okay.
Okay. And you would equate a felony with Charles Manson?
Objection argument.
No, I don't.
When you say extensive criminal record and convictions, what were Patrick's extensive criminal record and convictions that you're referring to?
This is what his mother said. I don't know.
His mother said extensive criminal record and convictions?
Extensive criminal record.
Didn't she just tell you that there was a felony DUI?
No, she didn't. She said that he had, Patrick said he had a DUI. His mother said he had a felony.
And
not just a DUI.
So what I'm asking you now is, when you decided to put all in caps in your email to the board or to whomever else you sent this to, extensive criminal record and convictions, what were you referring to in your mind?
DUI, felony.
Okay, a felony DUI.
Not felony DUI. Felony, period, DUI, period. Not felony DUI. You're combining the two. I wasn't understanding that it was two. It's two separate things. One was a DUI, one was a felony.
So you didn't know what the felony was about?
No.
Okay, and yet you decided to tell people that he had extensive criminal record and convictions?
Yes.
Okay, and
which he admitted in court.
He admitted that he had DUIs?
No, he admitted in court in front of Judge Bergeron that he had a felony.
A felony DUI, correct?
No, DUI was never included in there. It's in the papers.
So as you sit here today, you don't know what type of felony he had?
No. I was no longer on the board after that.
Okay. Well, you were certainly kept in the loop by the board, weren't you?
Objection
Yes,
argumentative. Don't
being
answer
attacked.
that. Let's just stay on track.
Okay, if you look at the fourth bullet point under regarding Patrick McErlane, you say, his running around and talking to the residents about this situation is insubordination. Why would you call that insubordination?
Because he's talking about me, and if he's going to be an employee and he wants to be an employee and he's running around talking about me, that's insubordination.
Well, this is after the fact where you say he's absolutely not going to be an employee, right?
Right.
Okay, but you
It's-
somehow think that he's below you?
Objection argumentative. Don't answer that question. That is absurd.
Okay, the insubordination was your word, right?
It's right there.
And you thought that Patrick going around telling people his side of the story was somehow something that he shouldn't be able to do?
It's right there.
Okay. And you say he is telling a jaded story and again omitting material facts, right?
Yes.
So were you afraid that the story that Patrick was telling was putting you in a bad light and making people turn against you?
No.
In the fifth bullet point, you say that Patrick swore at you profusely, right?
Yes.
And you say you think he may have used similar verbiage in his conversation with Dave. Do you know what conversation you're referring to?
The conversation with Dave was when he was delivering the papers.
Oh, so not the meeting.
No.
You say at the end of this email on the middle of page 1003 that you're attaching the next meeting's agenda. Do you know where that attachment is?
Okay, I see. I have no idea. It has to be with the board records.
Okay. So you briefly mentioned that you met with Nancy McErlane on the day after Patrick's termination, correct?
Correct.
She actually made a mistake for her testimony.
And did Nancy call you and propose this meeting?
No.
Did you call Nancy?
Nope.
Okay. So did you just happen to run into her at the building?
I was taking the locksmith around to change the locks.
Okay. And did you have a confrontation with Nancy at that time?
No.
You didn't scream at her?
Never.
The next one I want to mark is date stamped 1075, 1076. So that will be 43.
Mm-hmm.
So was this the next board meeting that you had?
I resigned at that time.
And I just wanted an answer to the first question. Was this the next board meeting after what we were just talking about?
Yes.
Okay. And it's dated January 18th, 2007, correct?
Correct.
And these are the minutes from the meeting?
Correct.
Okay. And you resigned at this meeting?
I resigned prior to the meeting.
How did you resign prior to the
I
meeting?
wrote him a letter.
So did you go to this meeting?
No.
And have you produced that resignation letter?
No. It should be in the board records.
Who did you direct it to?
I directed it to Bob Fostner, who was the president, interim president.
Do you recall what it said?
I said, due to my health reasons, I need to resign from the board.
Okay. Was that connected to Patrick McErlane?
It was connected to Patrick McErlane, never. It was connected to my health reasons.
Okay. And so you were not familiar with what went on at this meeting?
No.
Okay.
I have not been to another meeting since.
Okay. Do you recall keeping a harassment log, what you called a harassment log on Patrick McErlane? From January 25th of 2007 to August 5th of 2009?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, is that a yes?
Yes.
I think I have that in there, but I'm not marking it anyway. Oh, you know what? I think it is in this police report. That's where it is. If you turn to the page that's bait stamped, I'm not marking that one.
That's her decision on what to do with it.
Just wanted you to turn to page 841. Excuse me, the bait stamp's 841. Was this log, by the way, kept by you or your wife or both?
Both of us.
Okay, and did you do it contemporaneously? You know what that means?
I would get in there and add something, and then she would go through and then add something that after our discussions. It would be done at different times.
Okay, and did you do it the same day that things happened or day after, or how did you do that?
It was done the same day it happened.
Okay. So on that page, line 5, it says Patrick begins slander and defamation campaign against Joe and Cynthia to the residents of 110 Park Road. Were you upset that Patrick was telling residents about this termination incident?
Objection lacks foundation.
Well, why were you saying that Patrick had begun a slander and defamation campaign against you and your wife?
Because we could see that the residents were upset, and we had comments made to us, and we did not go into it with other people regarding this. Eventually, they all found out, but we did not go over and say, well, you know, we didn't hire him because he had a felony. We didn't throw felony at him at all. We tried to keep it as calm as we could.
So you say that Patrick targets the older, frail residents who have no caretakers or family and ingratiates himself to by running errands for them, driving them to medical appointments, doing odd jobs in their units while slandering Joe. These residents start asking Joe why he fired Patrick and didn't give him a chance.
Yes.
So did Cynthia write this, or did you?
I did.
Okay. And so you're saying in this log that the people who Patrick is helping out, he's doing that only for the reason of turning them against you?
Objection made mistake prior testimony. Misrepresents words stated in the document.
And why are you saying that he targets older, frail residents?
Because I see him do it.
Okay, so you think that when he was doing favors and running errands for people, that he had a bad motive for that?
Yes, he had an agenda.
And what was that?
That was to remain in the building.
Okay. He actually lived in the building, right?
Not at the time.
Okay. He wasn't living in the building to look after his grandmother?
No.
When did he first move into the building to look after his grandmother?
I don't believe. I think it was shortly, either before she died or after she died.
Well, he wouldn't have moved in to look after her after she died, right?
Well, he...
So you don't know?
No,
when he moved in?
not exactly,
Okay.
no.
Okay. So did you think that Patrick needed the approval of people in order to live in the building?
No.
On that same page, about lines between like 10, 11, 12 there, because the print is kind of between the lines. It says, Patrick is usually in the lobby with his dog in the mornings when Joe and Cynthia leave for work. He leers at them menacingly and mumbles profanities at them, but only when no one else is present.
Mm-hmm.
You're writing this about yourself in the third person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. When Patrick was mumbling profanities, did you suspect that he had a mental illness?
No.
Objection calls for expert opinion. Assumes facts, not in evidence.
And so after all of this occurred in the end of 2006, for that first part of 2007, did you ask the board to call the police on Patrick, to report Patrick to the police?
Did I tell the board to call the police? Never.
Did Don Utterback take that job right after Patrick?
No.
Who was the manager right after Patrick?
Some other guy.
Don't remember his
He,
name.
he was there 6 months.
Okay.
Don't remember his name. Never. Think I met him once in the hall.
Okay. Do you know why that person left?
No.
Okay. And then Don Utterback was after that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
At what point did you start wanting Patrick to move out of Park Plaza?
Objection. Argumentative. Assumes facts, not in evidence.
You can answer.
Why did you beat your wife? I'm going to raise the same thing that Skip said to me the other day.
You know, why did I want Patrick out of the building?
I know.
After,
At what point, I said,
Oh.
did you want Patrick out of the building?
when we got our restraining order.
Okay. In 2009?
Yes.
Okay. Were you working full-time in 2007?
Yes.
And was your wife working full-time?
Yes.
What was your daily routine at that time, if you recall?
I leave the house around 7:30, and I arrive back between 4:35.
Did you ever take morning walks?
Yes.
So would you take your morning walk before leaving for work?
Before going to work, yes.
So about what time?
7.
Okay. Where did you generally walk?
Around Burlingame.
Not too far, I guess, if you were leaving at 7:30, right?
Well, we would go down to probably about a mile and a half, and then back.
Okay. You and your wife, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall at one point in your log saying that Patrick hid in the bushes on Bayswater side and popped out at you?
Yes.
Can you describe for me what bushes those were?
Right by the exit door, there's a big tree that's there, I guess a big cypress tree. And if you had a map there, I can kind of show you where it's at. Yeah.
Well, you produced some maps
Well, just give me
Those
the-
would help?
Yeah, just right here. This will probably, okay.
For the
since
record,
this
let's
is-
just hold on just a sec. For the record, let's state that the documents that Joe is referring to are base labeled SCHREURS 1 through 3.
Okay. So this
And
is
you're referring to page 3, SCHREURS page 3?
SCHREURS page 3. This is Bayswater, this is Park. Okay, and right here, there's an exit.
Can I stop you for a sec?
Sure.
When the court reporter is taking down your testimony and you're pointing to things on the map, and we read the transcript afterwards, we don't know where you're pointing.
Okay.
In fact, it may be helpful to put the map here in front of the camera and just demonstrate on the camera. Let's do that.
This is the exit
Okay.
out of Park.
So there's a doorway to Bayswater right there.
And there's nothing but trees around here covering all this area, and there's a little pathway that goes like this.
Okay.
And there's a big tree here. And so we were coming out here, and he was over here with his dog.
Okay, can you just lift that up?
Is that same tree still there?
Oh, yes.
And you said it's some kind of cypress?
Yeah, it's a big cypress tree.
Like an Italian cypress?
Yeah, full, real thick.
Tall bush?
No. I mean, big, about as big as this table.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it looks like a cypress, but I think it's probably some kind of a, doesn't produce acorns or anything, but
It's a round bush.
it's a round bush. And then here they have the palm, and then here's another big tree. So
Okay.
they've got a lot of trees covering because people have their patios out here and stuff.
Okay. Is that the same entrance or exit that Patrick would use for walking his dog, if you know?
No, and normally he would go out the opposite direction, which is on this side, because his unit's right here. So he would go out on this side.
Okay.
So no, his unit is right here. So he would go out on the other side.
Okay. I don't know if we have more copies of that. Should I mark that since we were referring to it? Let's just go ahead and mark that one next in order. We have more. So that was 44. Okay.
Yes. No, sure is one.
I think it, oh,
3 and 1 look pretty similar.
okay. But I used the one you were pointing at.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. So now we're on 40.
No, it's 44.
Okay, so I'm going to mark next in order, ask the court reporter to mark as 45 the bait stamps numbers 972 and 973, PPT 972 and 973. For the record, all of the documents that I've been using so far are PPT, start with a PPT on the bait stamps other than the SCHREURS document that we just used. So in your stack, if you would turn to the one that's 972. On it, she's going to mark that one. Do you recall writing this email?
Yes.
Okay. And you're calling this your formal notice to the board, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Were you upset at this time that the board wasn't doing more against Patrick McErlane?
Yes.
And you were telling the board that Patrick had yelled at you and your wife in the hallway, right?
No, it wasn't quite yelling, but yes.
Okay, and you call it assaulting you, right?
Yes.
But he didn't touch you, did he?
Well, let's just say he came within a hair's inch of it.
Okay. And in this same formal report that you're making to the board, you say that Patrick has been responsible for vandalism at the building, or at least you infer that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. You say including the pool and sprinkler system for the past 6 months. Can you tell me what you're referring to there?
On my assault, or whether the sprinklers got broken off?
Well, the pool and the sprinkler system.
The pool, somebody had poured a chemical acid into it. And the sprinkler heads were when the Utterbacks were in their room, and they looked up and Patrick was staring over the fence, and where he was standing, the sprinklers heads were broken off, and that was reported to me by the Utterbacks.
Okay, and so did you have any evidence connecting these things with Patrick?
No.
At this point, in October of 2007, did you want the board to evict Patrick from Park Plaza?
No, I wanted to be protected.
Okay. You hadn't gotten a restraining order, had you?
No.
Is there a reason why you hadn't?
Because we're dealing with the police departments, and everybody keeps saying, well, you know, better start keeping a log. So we started keeping a log.
The police department told you
To keep a log.
Okay. Did you have any understanding of how to get a restraining order?
Yes, I knew how to get a restraining order.
Okay, and it doesn't involve the police department, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to mark next in order the date stamp, Park Plaza Towers, 848.
Hey, after we go through this, Sharon, let's stop because Joe has to take some heart medication.
Okay,
So let's break for lunch.
so this is 46.
What time is it, 12?
Yeah, it's almost 12.
Now, this is a letter that was written by Bob Fossner and sent to Nancy and to Verna Doherty, her mother,
Mm-hmm.
but it was CC'd to you, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall seeing this letter?
Yes.
Did you ask the board to send this letter?
No.
Did you know that the board was recommending that Patrick McErlane seek some professional help?
No.
Okay, we can break now.
Okay, we are off the record at 11:56 a.m. This marks the end of media number 1.